Relax. May the peace and blessings of God be with you. I hope when you listen to what I have to say, you listen with your feelings instead of your heart and mind. I can still hear your voice when you said that I should pray. I made my choice. I'm glad I did today, 'cause God answered my prayers, and my life was changed that day. I'm grateful, Lord. To you I'll always pray. Lord, I still remember the night when you changed my wrong to right. Now my life is peaceful and free. I'll always pray to thee. Lord, I pray that you'll stay and always comfort me, not just today, for all eternity. Lord, I still remember the night when you changed my wrong to right. Now my life is peaceful and free. I'll always pray to thee. That's how I came into Subud. I heard a voice, and it was my grandfather who died before I was born. And he told me to pray to God. And I didn't know how to pray to God. But in my heart, I heard myself say, God, God, God. And then the Latihan came over me, began shaking me on the bed, and I went into a full-blown Latihan. Didn't know what it was, never heard of Subud, Bapa, anything. Ibrahim, nothing. So I guess, and that was in Brooklyn, New York. So I was happy to find out that God is even in Brooklyn. But that experience gave me the understanding that in order for me to receive the Latihan, I had to direct myself to God, and only God, and never do anything unless I was made to do it in the Latihan. So some people I know feel they may not be receiving something, so they see other people walking around and singing, dancing, whatever they're doing. So they start to walk in the Latihan, or they start to do other things from their will. That's a big mistake, because in the Latihan, it should only be the will of God moving us. And we should always surrender our will to the will of God. So this movement that I'm making right now is called the zikr. The zikr means faith in God. And a lot of people in different religions try to remember God with beads and with all kinds of other things. But that's from their will. What I'm receiving is the will of God because I'm being made to move. I'm not moving from my will. And Bapak demonstrated this also for some people. And he said, when you're in this state, you're very calm and you're very peaceful and you're very quiet, no problems, everything is good. And then he stopped. He said, now you're empty and your thinking immediately starts to work. He said, that's bad. Don't do that. So allow yourself to keep moving if you can, if you can receive it, you know. If you can't receive it, just keep remembering God and let your mind go and let it work its way out, you know. Some people say to me, I think too much in Latihan. It's okay, because what we receive in Latihan is a purification. So if your mind is being purified, you're going to think, because that's what the mind does. So, as you can see, I don't know what I'm doing. I just say whatever comes to me. But in the Latihan, when I first started receiving the group Latihan, I used to be made to bend over backwards and fall on the floor on my head. I did this for almost a year, every Latihan. So every Latihan was like a test of faith, whether I would accept it or not. And finally one day I stood up, I was made to stand up in Latihan. And I remember feeling, I'll never have to fall down again because now I have spiritual legs. And eventually, everything becomes alive. The reason why, when Bapa was here, and he used to go around and test with the groups, he would mainly do awareness testing for us. Where are your legs? What are they for? Where are your arms? What are they for? Where's everything? Breathing, everything. Even thinking. Where's your mind? And Bapa said, you know, we have to become alive completely so that when we leave this world, we'll be able to function in the hereafter. A lot of people ask, well, why am I doing this Latihan? Why am I running around? Why am I making noises? Why am I doing this? Because you're being purified. So that eventually when your Latihan becomes orderly, you'll start to receive human movements that you can actually put into your daily life. And that's why I call the workshop Latihan in Daily Life. So once you start to receive human movements, but even before you start to receive human movements, I remember once, in the very early days for me, I read where Bapa said, when he first received the Latihan, he found it was very easy to feel the Latihan when he was doing his prayers. But it was much more difficult to feel it when he was at work. So he said, so Bapa had to make much more of an effort to feel the Latihan when he was at work. So I thought to myself, if he had to make an effort, how much more do I have to make an effort? So I started doing it at a very early age in Subud. And in the beginning, all I could receive or feel was some dull vibrations in my body. And that was fine because I felt the power of God. So I was satisfied. But it grows. It grows as the more I put it into my life, the more I could remember God, the more it grew. And in 1967, I went to the Tokyo World Congress, and I experienced being enveloped by this light, blissful feeling, which Papa calls a heavenly feeling. And that stayed with me all these years. It seems that when God gives us a gift, He never takes it away. It just stays with us. And then after that, I started to receive the zikr. One time I was doing the zikr, I was in Los Angeles after General Latihan, and I was having coffee or something, and I was just sitting and moving, and one of the older helpers came up behind me and he said, "Finish." He thought I was still, you couldn't stop my Latihan, but actually my Latihan wouldn't let me stop feeling the Latihan. But it's a different Latihan. It's the Latihan that we use in our life. And this movement, Bapa calls it, there's a zikr that goes forward. And he said, if you're doing a zikr and you start to think maybe about somebody who's your enemy, that could change them to become your friend. Or if your wife or husband is doing something wrong, that could help them to change and stop doing it. So there's a lot of things, a lot of uses, and a lot of things that, blessings that God gives us. When I first understood that I could put the Latihan into my daily life, I'm sure some of you heard some of these stories, but it's okay if you hear it again. It's not so bad. So I was in a shopping mall, and the thought came into my mind, why don't you walk the way you walk in Latihan? I thought, oh, that sounds good. So I just stopped for a moment, got quiet, remembered God. Next thing I knew, I was being made to walk through the shopping mall. And I was looking in the windows, and I was looking at the people, and it was very ordinary. But I was worshiping God. I could feel that. So that's the important thing, is every movement that we receive in Latihan that's human, we can put into our daily life. And that's what I understood at that, right after I had that experience, that every movement I could use in my daily life. So a lot of people in Subud are still confused about that. They say, oh, I can't drive because I'll crash my car, you know. But they're talking about the general Latihan, when your eyes are closed and when you're going ba-ba, boo-boo, bee-bee-ba. This is not the general Latihan. This is the Latihan, the feeling of the Latihan in your daily life. And so whatever you need to do, Bapa calls this furlu, which means you have an intention. So let's say I want to go over there. I just think I want to go over there. I'm kind of making an intention. Next thing I know, I'm being made to go over there. And if I want to come back, I'm being made to come back. So we can do that for anything that we do. There was a fellow who was a computer programmer who came to one of my workshops, and he said to me, I hate my job. He said, I have to get out of doing this work because it just drives me crazy. He said, can we test about it? I said, sure, why not? I said, how about, why don't we test, how do you do your work? And how would God have you do it? So we received those two questions, and he said, no wonder I hate my work. Look how I do it. It was really bad, the way he was doing it. And look how I should be doing it. It was in feeling the Latihan, it was in a very nice, worshipful way. So he stayed in that business. He didn't leave because it wasn't necessary. It was just the way he was doing it that was wrong. And you can test that with anything. Baba used to test the women, how do you put your makeup on? And some of the women would be slapping their face. And then he'd say, well, how would God have you do it? And they'd be going, yeah. You know, and then he tested another time with the women, and he said, what's the length of dress that God wants you to wear? And all the women were grabbing their ankles, all bent over grabbing their ankles. And Baba said, you see, it's not Baba that wants you to wear long dresses, it's God. So, yeah, he used to do a lot of those kind of tests. And after this, towards the end of the workshop, we'll do some testing, men and women separately. And you could test anything you want, whatever you feel you'd like to know about your life, how to put the Latihan into your life. And then you could do it for yourself. Because just listening to me is not that great. It's just my experience. Before I go on, does anyone have any questions or experiences they'd like to share? Or, yeah? Take the microphone, please.
Early on in this World Congress, I came across the idea of courage. So, like, I was introduced to the idea of, surrender, submission, and I can't remember the third one right now. And then I was introduced to the idea that Baba introduced courage towards the end of his life.
Right.
And I'm aware of how important that is, but how? Yeah, how do I get to the point where I have that courage to put it into practice?
Okay. That's the question.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Okay. If you start to put the Latihan into your life, you'll get courage. You'll feel more self-confident. Once you put the Latihan into your life, you'll become very self-confident, and you'll have lots of courage. When I was a child, I couldn't stand up in front of my class to say anything because my body would go crazy. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything like that. Now you can't shut me up. That's all from the Latihan. And that's also because I started putting the Latihan into my life at a very early age. So just start putting your Latihan into your life. And then you'll see for yourself. And it'll grow by itself, They asked Baba, how often should we do Latihan, Baba? Twice a week, is that enough? And Baba said, no. 5 times a week? No. 10 times a week? No. Well, how often should we do Latihan? He said, every heartbeat, every pulse beat, you should do Latihan. But that's the different Latihan. That's not the general Latihan, where we go all over the place. And the Latihan Baba's talking about is this Latihan that we can, once we receive it in the Latihan, we can then put it into our life. All of the human things that we receive. If you bark like a dog, you probably shouldn't do that.
I I read also a paper, and there's about the vibration.
Yeah.
You feel the vibration, then the movement comes. I'm 22 years in the Latihan.
Yes.
I'm trying, but I had so many doubts and thinking, can't imagine. But sometimes now I can feel a vibration, but not in the Latihan. Sometimes at night when I woke up, I have this, you know.
Yeah.
And then it could be also that I had a heart, something, you know, my fantasies are big. Is it really in the Latihan? How do I know? And so on, you know. And I think perhaps that would be my solution, that I not feel the vibration,
Exactly.
but it's
Exactly.
there.
That's
Hopefully is that. I only, really, I need trust and hope. I
Right.
have nothing in my
But-
pocket.
But also, the point is, now that you feel the vibration, you know for sure, that's not you, that's the Lati. It's clear.
In the nights.
Whenever you feel it,
Yeah.
it's clear.
All right.
Because we can't make that happen.
No.
Only God can make that happen.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we need to do. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to ask something?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
He knows me well. My question is actually the opposite of this man over here. I don't lack for courage. My big fear is, well, where I am now in the Latihan, I can more or less feel it in the Latihan. And I more or less know the difference between my will and the Latihan. It's kind of getting clearer and clearer.
Right.
My big fear is if I tried to do what you're suggesting, and I'm certainly not saying that you're wrong, I would just end up sitting there for a very long time, because I'm afraid that for me it seems very hard to feel the Latihan in my daily life.
Would you like to know why?
Sure. I don't mind being humiliated and embarrassed.
Because you're thinking all the time.
Yeah. Okay, I accept that as being true.
You
but
need to start feeling.
yeah.
Stop thinking so much and start feeling. Think when you need to think. Not just keep thinking constantly. Only when you need to think. The way we should be is our jiwa should be out front.
Right.
Our nafsus should be behind us.
Right.
The way it is now in general, the nafsus are out front and the jiwa is behind them. Because the jiwa is serving the nafsus now.
Yeah.
Until the jiwa gets strong enough and big enough, it's not a good situation. When I went to Indonesia in 1971, Siddhartha, who was one of Bapa's top helpers there, he said, the difference between the Indonesians and the Westerners were that the Indonesians had a better ancestry, so they had less problems, whereas the Westerners had a much worse ancestry, so they have a lot more to purify. So what we're purifying is really mostly not our own mistakes. It's 90% of what we inherited from our ancestors. So that's a lot of purification. But we need to go through it. There's no other way. But the real blessing is that once we experience that, once we go through it, our children won't have to go through that. They'll only have to pay for their own mistakes, but they won't have to pay for the ancestors' mistakes. So that's a big blessing that God has given us, And yeah. I mean, my daughter went through lots of problems. She made some mistakes. She had to go through purification. Now she's a helper in Los Angeles, and a very good helper. So I'm proud of her.
I find that
and I'm probably not the only one, that some Subud people experience the Latihan in their daily life to the point that they become very, very passive, not able to take much action in the world. The bus doesn't arrive, and so they sit and assume a bus will arrive rather than taking some action about it, something like this.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, for example, when you're acting as a helper and you're talking to other members or when you're talking to applicants, how might you personally distinguish the difference between surrendering to receive the Latihan in the daily life versus having the courage to take some action so that we're not passive?
Yeah, well, that's a mistake that people make. Papa calls it endless patience. There are two kinds of patience. There's patience, and then there's endless patience, where people just wait. They're waiting for God to do it for them. I don't wait. I always take an action. If I have something to do, and my daughter can tell you, I do it right away. I don't wait, because I don't want to think about it anymore. So the sooner I get it done, the sooner I don't have to think about it. And Papa one time said, when people ask him for money, he doesn't lend it to them. Because if he lends it to them, he'll think about them paying it back. He says, so he just gives them the money. That way he doesn't have to think about it. But as Papa one time said, he said, if you don't really put your Latihan into your life, later on, you're not going to be very happy. You're going to be very sorry. So we better make the effort and, Papa was given a mission from God, and actually Papa said that we all have been given a mission from God. And the mission is that we need to bring the Latihan into the world. And so we have to become an example of the Latihan, the fruits of the Latihan, so that when you're near somebody, they maybe feel something from you. You say, wow, something about you, I don't know what it is. What is it? And then you can say, well, I'm a Subud member. In fact, I had a friend of mine who just came out of prison when I was very young. And I ran into him on the street, and he said, hey, how you doing? How you doing? I said, I'm fine, how are you? He said, you're still drinking a lot? I said, no, I don't drink anymore. He said, well, you're still chasing girls, right? No, I don't do that anymore. He said, well, what do you do? I said, well, I do the Latihan Kejuan of Subud. And he said, what the heck is that, And it's exactly how Papa said it would happen, And so I explained it to him, and he became a Subud member for life. He's now passed on, and it was really good, because in those days I was the house maintenance chairman of Subud, New York. And I used to have to clean the bathrooms by myself and do all of that stuff. And I had nobody to help me. But when he got open, he started helping me. In fact, one day, I was cleaning a bathroom in the Subud house, not feeling very happy about it. And I began to feel that while I was cleaning the bathroom, it was like I was cleaning myself inside. And I thought to myself, this is not so bad. So then I didn't mind coming there by myself and cleaning the whole Subud house, because I really felt the benefit that I got from it. And in fact, I found that working for Subud is such a tremendous blessing. In anything I ever did for Subud has been such a tremendous gift from God. I always receive more than I could give, So if you want to get closer to the Latihan or anything like that, do any job in Subud, and it'll help you. because it's just a blessing.